Can you tell us about
Perfect.
some key things that you look for? And I know we've talked about this before, but I think it's relevant as we go into talking about the property and the physical attributes of the property and what needs to change. So over to you, Amir.
I'm going to reference Jim Carrey, if that's okay.
That's
I've
fantastic.
There's a great movie called Me, Myself, and Irene. It's a few years old now,
Yeah.
but Jim Carrey plays a father to several kids, but at least two of them are classified as genius. And
Ah,
they get into a helicopter and start flying it because they've played a computer game to fly a helicopter. So they learn by flipping through the manual and watching TV and watching computer games. I
right.
don't recommend that. However, in this little Tony TV episode, I
Yes.
thought I'd give you three very quick brush strokes, which is, if you think of it this way,
Mm,
there's a way to get your head straight to go, right, this is what I'm going to plan to do.
yes.
Then there's a next level, which is a little bit deeper, which is,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so now I've got it on paper or computer, I've written it down, I've stepped through it, I've measured it.
Yes.
And then that scribble, that kind of rough idea,
Yes.
you take through to the paid licensed professionals that action your
Yes.
great ideas.
Yes.
Hopefully they're great ideas. So
I'm
if you're
sure
one of
they're
the
great
geniuses
ideas, Amir.
that can watch, so if you can watch the Tony TV episode and then be able to do it yourself, you're one of those
Absolutely.
genius level people to go, right, I've learned it from TV, I've done it.
Yes.
There's a few people that I'm in Oberon at the moment.
Mm.
I'm meeting people that are licensed to do the technical things that require years of training.
Yeah.
For example, plumbers,
Mm-hmm.
electricians,
Yes.
asbestos assessors, asbestos removers,
Yeah.
um, mechanical or structural engineers,
Very
hydro
important.
engineers, town planners. So there's a list of trades that you would use that are specialists within that field.
And you have to do it that way,
Before,
don't you, Amir? You can't cut corners
yes and no.
with specialist stuff like plumbing. There's some that you can do, yes, but there's other bits that you can't do. And we'll explore that as well, won't we?
Exactly. So here's the thing. If you're doing the rough idea and you're deciding whether the property should be a property you buy, you're
Mm-hmm.
probably not going to spend $50,000 on your research. Now,
Right.
if you read Donald Trump's book on how he did his big New York developments and how he made millions and billions of dollars, you're talking a different scope because your
Yes.
purchase price is $100 million. So the cost of paying professionals $50,000 for a $100 million building, that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're buying a $4 million house, so the average price in Sydney might be $2 to $4 million, depending on the street and the suburb.
Yes.
If you're buying a $4 million house, spending 50,000 on the research is probably a waste, but
Yeah.
spending 5,000 is probably enough to cover you from the major risk. So, for example, an asbestos assessment before you make an offer on the property might run up 400 to $1,000,
Uh-huh.
but it means you're getting a piece of paper to say, this is how much asbestos is in the property I'm thinking of buying. They're not going to drill holes in the wall and they're not going to dismantle half the house to see where the hidden bits are, but it'll give you
Mm.
a good rough starting point so that at least you know if it's worthwhile paying the professionals to go further. So I said I'm going to give you three different levels. The first
Yes.
one is the broad stroke. So let's
Uh-huh.
do, if you think about somebody coming to a house, you normally visualize a tape measure,
Yes. Yes.
right? But that's not always the case. It's easy for you to work out how many steps forward to walk 10 meters. And then when you
Uh-huh.
walk into a room, you use your feet to go, right, 1, 2, 3, that's 3 meters. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 4 meters.
Yes.
That rough idea of just the steps is good enough to give you a very, very rough idea of whether you can fit a queen size bed in the room or whether you can fit a king size bed in the room. You don't need to
Right.
get it to the nearest 10 centimeters or even the nearest 50 centimeters. But the first thing, especially when I do as a buyer's agent, I might do 50 inspections in 1 week.
Ooh.
As a person buying your only house, if you're only buying one house, you might do 6 inspections in a week. So
Mm,
it's a volume thing. If you were trying to get your tape measure out and write down notes on every place you'd go to, you'd run out of paper.
yes.
You'd literally be carrying a briefcase with you everywhere you went and started a new file. So it doesn't make sense because you're only buying one house.
Uh-huh.
So you get this briefcase of information, and by the time you've compiled everything,
You're confused?
99% have already sold. There's only one left anyway. So you
Mm,
may as well have just measured the one that you were probably going to buy in the first place. So
right.
from a very, very broad stroke, and this applies to every state in Australia, every territory in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
you do the walkthrough. So you physically start from the street where the gate is, and then you walk as far as you can to the end of the property.
Yes.
And on your mobile phone, on your notes, you just say, so I start from outside and then
Uh-huh.
work in.
Yes.
You start from the boundary and you just do the walk across all the way up to the furthest part of let's say it's a rectangular block. So you walk up
Mm,
to one side of the rectangle and you walk across to the other side of the rectangle. So you
yes.
get the overall rough big size. Then you do the same thing on the outside of the house. So if it's not a unit, if it's a house, then you're owning everything within the house area, but not
Correct.
counting the garage, just the actual living area. You just do the walk steps. Put that on your phone.
Mm,
So now you've only got 4 numbers:
yeah.
the width and the length,
Yes.
and then the house, the width and the length.
Yeah.
You're going to get lots of these little walls and crevices and whatever. Estimate. Imagine there's just a square box or a rectangular
Yes.
box around it. Write those numbers down and then do the same thing on the inside. It doesn't really matter how big the hallway is, but it does matter how big the kitchen is, the lounge room, the
Right.
bedrooms, bathroom,
Mm,
definitely. Most people
mm,
don't think the
yes.
bathroom size is important. It's actually one of the
Oh,
most expensive
to
parts of the house to
renovate.
renovate.
Yeah.
Anywhere where you've got a wet area, whether it's a laundry or whether it's a kitchen or whether
Kitchen
it's a
or
bathroom,
bathroom or a toilet.
slow down on those. So
Okay.
actually spend more time getting those correct.